The evening air is filled with the fragrance of fresh grass and the sweet aroma of blooming roses. Stephen Westbrook, a 35-year-old software engineer in the quiet community of River Bend, gets out of his car and fixes his gaze on his house. The two-story modern building with its wide windows and neatly trimmed lawn is a symbol of his upcoming wedding to his fiancée Samantha Sullivan, which is just 2 weeks away. The house is not just a place, it is a symbol of their shared dreams and the love that binds them together. Stephen took a deep breath to try and dispel the stress from a hard day's work. He had been working long hours in the office in recent days, as he was quietly preparing for the honeymoon in Santorini. The surprise Santorini honeymoon, a gift he had been planning for months, was slowly approaching down the driveway when a slight movement in the living room window caught his attention. His heart quickened with the hope that it was Samantha eagerly waiting for him. However, when he opened the door, the sight that greeted him stopped him in his tracks. Samantha stood in the doorway, her dark hair elegantly swept to one side, wearing a sleek black cocktail dress with sheer stockings and high heels. A string of pearls glowed softly in the night light, and although she looked stunning, there was something undeniably missing. Her expression was full of nervousness and uncertainty, betraying the calmness of her appearance. "Wow," Stephen said, his voice a mixture of admiration and confusion. "You look so beautiful. Have I forgotten something special?" Her lips curved into a forced smile as she grabbed hold of the door frame. "No, Stephen," she replied, her voice trembling. "You haven't forgotten anything. We need to talk." A chill ran through Stephen's stomach. The last time he had uttered those words was after a fight with his best friend, and this time they sounded heavier and more ominous. He noticed a travel bag by the door and asked her, "Are you going somewhere?" She nodded, and Samantha hesitated, her shoulders stiffening. She whispered, "I'm going away for a week." Stephen frowned, confused. The wedding was in 2 weeks, and what could be so urgent now? She crosses her arms as if to steal herself away. "I've always felt overwhelmed." She admits that between the wedding and everything else, I need space to sort things out. His confusion gives way to suspicion. Space. He repeats it, his tone suspicious. "You decided this without consulting me. Where are you going?" "A hotel in the city center." She quickly averted his gaze and spoke alone. Stephen lowered his voice. Her hesitation was brief but fatal. "No," she admitted, her voice almost inaudible. "I'll be with a friend." Stephen felt the air leave his lungs as her words swirled around in his head, desperately trying to make sense of them. He asked urgently, "This friend wouldn't happen to be a man, would he?" Samantha's face flushes, her gaze falls to the floor. "It's not what you think," she stammers. "He's just a friend." Stephen clenches his fists, his frustration exploding. "You spend the weekend with another man 2 weeks before our wedding, and you expect me to believe it's innocent? Who is he?" Her silence is deafening. Stephen takes a step closer. "Tell me his name firmly. Samantha, don't make me ask again." She finally whispered, "I've been talking to someone." Her voice was choked with emotion, her eyes brimming with tears. She nodded, barely meeting his gaze. Yes, she admitted it. Stephen's jaw tightened as he tried to control his emotions. This person is not a therapist, a counselor, or a priest. "Who is he?" he asked, his tone full of sarcasm. Sarcastic tone. "Heck, he's a good listener," she muttered exasperatedly. Stephen raised his hands in the air in exasperation. "A good listener. You're putting everything we have at risk because some guy decided to listen to you." "I haven't given up anything," Samantha protested, her voice choking up. "I just need to do this for me and our future." Stephen let out a bitter laugh, his voice hollow and weak. "For us, sneaking into another man's hotel is going to help us?" Her tears overflowed, obscuring her makeup. "I don't expect you to understand," she sobbed. Stephen's anger gave way to deep sadness as he quietly asked how long, and Samantha replied, her voice small. How long this had been going on, and he clarified, his voice quavering, her lips quivering as she admitted a few months. "But it's not what you think, we just chat." Stephen's voice cold. "Do you really think I'll believe that?" "I swear, Stephen," she pleaded. "We never went any further, not yet," he retorted bitterly. "But that's why you packed your bags, isn't it?" Her silence was the best answer. Stephen turned away, running his hands through his hair, trying to digest the blow of the world falling apart. He turned back, his voice full of pain. "Samantha, do you love me or not? Or is this all just a game?" She choked as she answered, "I love you, Stephen. You're everything I've ever wanted." But her voice began to tremble and tears streamed down her face. "But that's why I'm doing this. I need to experience it one last time before we get married." Stephen stared at her in shock. "What are you talking about? I'll only be with you," she admitted. "Even though I love you, I can't get rid of the idea of what I'm missing. I just need to know what it's like to be with someone else before I commit to forever." Stephen took a deep breath, his anger rekindled. "So you're willing to throw away forever just for a fleeting curiosity? This should be easier to forgive." Stephen's voice was steady but uncompromising as he faced her. "This is it, Samantha. If you walk out of this house with that bag, there will be nothing between us. No wedding, no future, nothing. Do you understand?" Samantha stood motionless, her tears running down her cheeks. "Stephen, please don't do this," she pleaded, her voice quavering. He shook his head and cut her off with a sharp finality. No more lies, no more excuses. Making her choice, her gaze flickered between him and the door. The pressure of her decision weighed down like a suffocating fog. Seconds felt like eternity. Then she hugged the bag to her chest and whispered, "I'm sorry." Stephen watched her back as her heart broke in two. The click of the door closed behind her, resounding like a hammer blow, announcing the end of their shared dream. Stephen stood in the empty hallway, feeling an avalanche of emotions hit him. Endless questions flashed through his mind. What had gone wrong? He could have changed the outcome. Now, amidst the ruins, he knew what he was up against and what his next move should be. That night he sat alone in the dim living room, drinking whiskey. The liquid burned down his throat, mirroring the anger and pain inside. The thought of betrayal came at him like a storm. Even though he didn't know the man's name, Stephen vowed to uncover the truth. Samantha's actions demanded answers, and he wasn't going to let the matter rest. The next morning he called an old friend from university days, Alex, who had since switched careers and become a private investigator. "Alex, it's Stephen," he began, in a stiff, nervous voice. "I need your help. Samantha has another man. I need to know everything about him, no stone unturned." Alex replied, "I'll look into it. Give me a few days." After the call ended, Stephen's eyes fell on the coffee table, and seeing it evoked a complex of emotions of sadness and determination. Samantha had broken his trust, but he would not let her betray him without a response. 2 days later, Alex called back. His name was Victor Tomlinson, Alex reported. He was a marketing consultant for her company. Divorced in his no children. They met regularly for dinner, drinks, and last night they checked into a hotel downtown. Stephen's chest tightened. "Do you have proof?" "Photos and receipts," Alex confirmed. "I'll send them to you right away." Stephen opened the email and with trembling hands, clicked on the pictures. Each one showed a dagger. Samantha and Victor shared laughter at dinner, their hands clasped as they walked into the hotel. The time-stamped receipts confirmed it all. Stephen's anger burned like wildfire. He had given her the chance to confess, but she had chosen to deceive. She would pay for that choice over the next few days. Stephen has carefully formulated a plan. The sting of betrayal is still fresh in his mind, and he refuses to let the pain consume him. Samantha underestimated him. If she thinks she can betray him without consequence, the first step is to protect herself. He arranges a meeting with C.L. Hartman. His shrewd lawyer listens carefully to Stephen's explanation of the situation, her brow furrowed with concern. He hands her a list of assets and says, "I want to make sure everything is secure. The house, the accounts, the car, everything." She nodded confidently, "Because you weren't married and she had no legal claim, but we'll make sure nothing complicated happens, leave it to me." For the first time in days, Stephen felt a glimmer of relief. Samantha might have broken his heart, but she wasn't taking anything with her that night. Alex sent another email, this time containing a detailed report on Victor, including his home address, work history, and even the car he drove. One detail stood out: Victor was not only a colleague but also Samantha's boss. Stephen was shocked by this discovery. "Can you look into this a little more?" Stephen asked Alex. "What exactly are you looking for?" Alex asked about everything suspicious: financial misconduct, criminal records, skeletons in his closet, you name it. Alex laughed. The next day, Stephen began to implement his plan. He used a fake email account, attached the incriminating photos, and wrote a sternly worded email that was sent to Samantha's family, close friends and colleagues. But he didn't stop there. The photos were forwarded to a well-known gossip blog, which, thanks to its reputation for exposing workplace scandals, published the story within hours under the headline, "Marketing Executive Has Affair with Engaged Employee." The effect was immediate. Samantha's phone was inundated with calls and texts, her friends and family showered her with questions and condemnation, and her mother left an angry and disappointed voicemail. Stephen watched from afar as Samantha's carefully constructed life began to crumble, but Stephen wasn't finished yet. Later that week, Alex called triumphantly and said, "You're going to love this," he said. Victor had been embezzling company funds, not obviously, but over time the amounts were quite substantial. Stephen's mouth curled into a sneer. Perfect. He forwarded the evidence to the company's human resources and legal teams. It wasn't long before they started taking action. Over the weekend, Victor was taken from the office and his career was destroyed. On Saturday, Samantha appeared at Stephen's doorstep. Her glossy appearance was replaced by despair, and she kept knocking until Stephen finally opened the door. With a blank expression, he asked, "What do you want?" She stammered through her tears, "Stephen, I made a mistake, an irreparable mistake, but my love for you has never wavered." Samantha's voice trembled, and her eyes flashed with remorse. Stephen let out a sharp, silent laugh. "When you slipped into Victor's hotel room, what did you whisper to Victor?" She went pale, as if struck by his words. "It wasn't like that. Don't try to lie to me." Stephen cut her off, his tone becoming loud as his waning patience gave way to raw anger. "I gave you many chances to tell the truth, but you chose to deceive and to leave. You destroyed everything we had." He lowered his voice and his words became hoarse. Samantha fell to her knees and tears ran down her cheeks. "Stephen, I was confused. I didn't know what I wanted, but now I know. It's you. It's always been you." She raised her tear-stained face, despair written all over it. "Please let me make amends. Give me another chance." Stephen's gaze was cold, his emotions in turmoil, pain and anger mingled. "Don't you understand yet? This is not a second chance, it is a responsibility," he said, his voice cold. "You have not only hurt me, you have humiliated me, and now you have finally reaped the evil you have sown." Samantha's sobs grew louder, her voice trembling with despair. "I will do anything, Stephen, anything." He bent down and met her gaze. His voice was low, but full of venom. "You've done enough. Now get lost." He motioned for her to leave the pavement. "We're finished." A few days later, Stephen sent evidence of Samantha's affair with Victor to the CEO of her company. Samantha wasn't involved in Victor's embezzlement, but their relationship was scandalous enough to ruin her reputation, and she was quickly and ruthlessly dismissed. Through a mutual friend, Stephen learns that Samantha has moved back in with her parents and is unable to manage her own expenses alone. Victor's fate unravels even more quickly, and his financial situation comes under investigation, leading to a full and thorough investigation. As the months pass, Stephen begins to rebuild the life that was destroyed by Samantha's betrayal. He sold the engagement ring he had given her, and donated the money to a local non-profit organization. The house they had shared was put up for sale, and Stephen moved to a new place, determined to start again. One quiet afternoon, he was drinking coffee on the balcony of his new apartment when his phone vibrated and a message came from Alex Victor. Stephen let out a slow breath, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. It was the first time he had ever closed a message, and it felt like a long time ago. He felt a sense of calm. Samantha's betrayal had nearly, but he had withstood the test and found himself with an unprecedented resilience. He vowed that he would never allow anyone to take advantage of his trust again. The wound would take time to heal, but one thing was certain: he had weathered the storm and emerged stronger. The story ends here. If you like it, please click like and subscribe to the channel.